So you have to look at it from that perspective. The word doctor comes from dossier. You know, dossier means it comes from the Latin teacher. So every one of you who are aspiring to be doctors are essentially going to be teachers as well. So okay, over to Dr. Muskan. Yes, start, the video is rolling.
So 60-year-old female, she was a known hypertensive since 6 years and a chronic smoker since 15 years. She presented to the OPD on 28 with complaints of shortness of breath since 2 weeks, aggravated since 2 weeks, and chest pain which was on and off 2 days. She was asymptomatic 10 years back. Then she had lower back pain, for which she went to a hospital and she was diagnosed to have osteoporosis. For that she's been using calcium supplementation and NaCIs. And then...
So 10 years back, how did they diagnose her to have osteoporosis?
So she had a lot of pain that interfered with her daily life. So they got...
Pain due to low backache.
Yes.
Yeah, there are many causes of low backache causing pain. Why would anybody just say, oh, you are having low backache pain, you have osteoporosis? How did they decide that?
So she was having joint pains also, sir, and there
Yes.
were few investigations also.
Yes, so what kind of investigations and how does joint pain relate to osteoporosis?
Sir, on the investigation they found wedge-shaped vertebrae in her spine, sir.
That was not 10 years back, that was now. That is what we found. So what did they find 10 years back? And how did you know that they thought of osteoporosis at that time?
So she does not have that all reports and...
Yeah, how did you assume that 10 years back somebody made the diagnosis just like we did? Whom did she meet 10 years back who had the capacity to diagnose this problem? So 10 years back, I think your assumption came from the fact that she was swallowing calcium tablets. Somebody gave her calcium. And you assume that calcium is the treatment of osteoporosis. Or you assume that somebody thought that it was the treatment of osteoporosis. Isn't it? On that assumption you thought, okay, she may have been diagnosed as osteoporosis at that time. Isn't it? But the fact is, I think nobody diagnosed her. They just left her as low backache, till she came to KIMS and she met you, and then you diagnosed her for the first time. Yeah, she didn't have a diagnosis before this. So how did you diagnose her? That is what we are going to learn today, isn't it? So go ahead with the history and the examination findings.
1 year back, she again went for her back pain, so to the hospital she
Initially went.
So there she complained of having lower abdomen pain and burning micturition with pedal edema. So they got an ultrasound done and they found out that she's having a stone in her ureter and she had mild hydronephrosis.
Okay, so how significant do you think this finding was in explaining whatever she was having? So it was explaining her symptoms at that time, isn't it? So what was the diagnosis to explain that symptom? What were the symptoms? What was the diagnosis? Now just summarize in that point of
She
time.
had lower abdomen pain, sir, and she had burning micturition.
Due to? Lower abdominal pain was due to?
Because of the stone.
Yes. Well, where was the stone?
It was in the ureter.
Which ureter?
Right.
Right ureteric stone would produce what kind of lower abdominal pain? Right lower abdominal pain on the right side. Maybe when you say lower abdominal, you probably mean the right iliac fossa, or maybe even the right lumbar region. So maybe she was having a right lumbar and right iliac fossa pain, which was diagnosed timely as a ureteric colic. So what are the characteristics of ureteric colic? When you describe the ureteric colic-like pain, what are the characteristics? You know, now we are also getting into the exam mode. Normally, we don't take the class or the session tutorial, doesn't happen like this. But I am sometimes doing this because there are external examiners who ask these kind of questions. These are textbook questions which I am asking. Normally we tend to avoid textbook questions, but sometimes because of the externals we also have to join in and ask you textbook questions. So a textbook question is, what is the typical ureteric colic like? Characteristic. And I'm sure you've heard of this term, loin to groin. No? My God. You have, isn't it? Loin to groin. The pain is loin to groin. That is a typical textbook description of ureteric colic, isn't it? So this patient was not having it loin to groin, she was having it in the groin. Maybe on the right groin. Isn't it? We don't know. I mean, she couldn't have told you or you would. That was long back, isn't it? 1 year back. So anyway, she had a ureteric colic 1 year back and she recovered out of that. Because how do you treat a ureteric colic? Okay, now let's change a little bit of the thing. So the video shifts to the person on your right. Yeah, the person on your right is going to answer this question. You have to show him because he is going to answer. He has taken the video. Oh, achha, he has taken the video. Good. Alright. Yeah, because it was his mobile phone anyway. So, right. So, he is videoing you answering this question. What was the question? Did I ask him? Yes. Treatment of ureteric colic. As a MBBS physician, you have opened your shop in Nargetpalli and somebody has come to you with ureteric colic. Of course, he is not saying, I'm having ureteric colic, I'm having, not like that. He has come with the same problem, loin to groin pain. You examined and you have got an X-ray done or an ultrasound. Because by the time you start practicing, the ultrasound will be in the mobile phone. Right now it is there in the mobile phone. Only thing because of the laws, you are not getting to use it. In US, everybody is doing their own ultrasound. So you will do your ultrasound, you will see the ureteric stone. Now how will you treat it? How do you treat a ureteric colic as a physician? Everything is actually treated by physicians. Surgeons, only when it's complicated. Only then surgeons step in. Otherwise, 90% of all illnesses are tackled by the RMP. RMP means a registered medical practitioner or a rural medical practitioner. Both of which you are right now. Or we are. Because we are in a rural medical college and we are all registered medical practitioners. So we are all RMPs. Okay. Tell us, how do you treat a ureteric colic that you just diagnosed? Nothing. You just give painkillers, that's all. You will relieve the pain. The duty of a physician and the only thing a physician can do is to relieve pain. Giving pharmacological management. And once the pain goes, nothing to be done. So what happens? How does the ureteric stone get relieved? If it is less than 10 centimeters, it will come out on its own. Anyway, it has come down till the bladder, as you said. It is not higher up, it is near the bladder. You said that. So it is because it has been traveling. It may have started off its journey in the pelvic callus. Now it is near the bladder. After some time it will drop down into the urinary bladder and then from there it will go to the urethra. And maybe he was having burning because some of its brothers and sisters already dropped down and are on their way through the bladder and urethra, which the ultrasound could not see because they have become gravel now. So he could be having gravel urea. Gravel is very, very small stones which you cannot see, but causing the burning micturition. That's a possibility. Or she may have had a UTI also. So very good history by Muskan. So let's move ahead because we have to diagnose the other problems of this patient.
She then had same 1 year back, so she had shortness of breath, which was grade 2, and now it's been progressing, it's on and off. So for that she's been taking few injections nearby her place since 2-3 months, but we don't have information about what were those, sir.
Okay.
So she presented.
So why was she having shortness of breath and how were they coming down with injections?
Maybe she was having just a bronchospasm. And
Yeah, what in the symptomatology will tell you that? Because of course we'll jump to the clinical examination, but before that anything in the symptoms to tell you why the patient is having shortness of breath. So shortness of breath can be due to either a lung problem, a bronchial problem or a cardiac problem. So how would you differentiate a cardiac shortness of breath from a bronchial shortness of breath?
So she didn't tell about any respiratory distress
Shortness of breath.
tachypnea or anything.
Shortness of breath is respiratory distress only. It is dyspnea. Tachypnea is what you see. What you objectively see is respiratory rate, that is tachypnea. But what the patient complains is shortness of breath or dyspnea.
She
So-
just complained of bilateral pedal edema, sir.
Yeah, she complained of that, but you were just saying that she was having difficulty in breathing. Just now you said.
Basically, sir, she told both of it. She's not sure about what she was having.
No, but if she is telling that she is having difficulty in breathing, how can she not be sure about it?
She even said she has on it.
Okay, DK wants to clarify. Give it to him, can't hear him. DK, speak into the mic, we don't have much time.
Doctors are saying that she is having shortness of breath.
Okay, so the patient was not claiming that she was having shortness of breath, it was the relatives who were saying that she was having shortness of breath. That's very interesting. So, subjectivity of the relatives are playing here. So, why were the relatives saying that she is having shortness of breath, for which she was being taken to the RMP?
They say that she used to go to the washroom and she used to immediately come back and lie down.
Yes. So, was it because of weakness or was it because of shortness of breath or fatigue? What does that indicate? Could it be heart failure? So, what will happen when you have heart failure? When you do some exertion, your body will not be able to cope up with it because your heart is not pumping enough. So, your body wants more oxygen. So, automatically you develop fatigue. So, fatigue can be an early symptom of heart failure, an incipient heart failure. So, that is one possibility in the symptomatology. Very good, very interesting observation by the relatives. If you go into these symptomatologies which the relatives say, and especially if it is done in a classroom atmosphere, not in front of them, then you can find out so many interesting possibilities. In fact, even if the relatives were here, it would have been even better. You could have clarified immediately. You could have further asked them. Isn't it? Okay, good. So now let's jump to the examination. Come down. Come down. Down, down. Yeah. So that's what? No pedal edema. Is it?
She had no pedal edema, sir.
Yeah.
But she had central obesity.
So what are you showing here in the examination finding? And where is your central obesity picture?
So we could not take the picture because she wasn't at corporate. She's always sleeping on the one side. So
Yeah, if she is sleeping on one side, you take it from one side. You tilt your camera to one side and take it. So DK has got some pictures, it seems. So anyway, he will lend it to you and you can use them. So what did you find eventually on examination then?
she had purpura, sir.
Okay, that's general examination purpura, which is also visible in your leg image. Come down. System
She had
examination.
moon faces.
Okay, moon faces, yes. What else? She had a redness of the faces also. We often notice that with Cushing's. They have all red kind of, I don't know why that redness comes. Maybe you can read up the literature and tell us why Cushing's have this redness in their face. Even black women like her have redness in their face. You know? So what about other things? CVS, it seems. So why Muskan, after all this, you are still writing so much less of template of CVS? What about inspection, palpation on the apex beat? Percussion, of course, you don't need to percuss all the CVSs. And what about the respiratory system? Yeah, straight away bilateral air entry, straight away auscultation. If you do this in the exam, you will be in trouble, isn't it? Because examiners are very conservative. They want you to go by the textbook. And textbook says you have to start from inspection, palpation, percussion, and you have straight away jump to auscultation. So it's good that this was a way for the others in your batch to learn from your errors, and that is how you are creating impact. And the more you put your neck in the front line and your neck gets cut, the more impact you make, and that is how you grow. Okay, so all of you should be not scared of putting your neck out and letting it be cut. Okay, so I think on the examination she has got Cushing syndrome according to her, but then she may have been biased by the other PGs who have told her that. Now let us see the investigations. So one of the important investigations which we have not shown is the X-ray of the vertebra.
X-ray of the vertebrae, don't X-ray of the lung.
But X-ray of the vertebra is where the osteoporosis is. That's where you made the diagnosis. We have another log. Another expert has done his log. Everything is there. Maybe some more pictures are there. So you can always borrow from each other, but you have to always acknowledge that this image has been borrowed from this previous case report done by somebody else. Okay. So see, beautiful. Make it bigger. Yeah, there. Yes. Now Muskan will identify which vertebra is fractured where. Oh, our hospital is not showing a fracture. Outside one is showing. That would be strange. Okay, let us see the outside one. Oh, it's not there. But here also, look at the L5. No, not that. Okay. Yeah, this is the one. Huh? So look at which one is L5. My L5. No, the previous one. Previous one. I mean, just now which you showed. Acha, but it was bigger, no? Can you make it bigger? Right. So show us which is L5. Where is L5? So L5. This is S1. So what has happened to L5 and S1? L5 has moved out of S1. So this is called a listhesis, spondylolisthesis. And then this is L4. L3, L2, L1, and this is, which vertebra is this? And this must be D12, isn't it? D12, and this is D11, isn't it? So what you are seeing is a wafer thin D12, isn't it? Previously, I don't know why we are seeing this at a lower level, but this is a wafer thin D12, and you can see that most of these vertebrae, they are osteopenic, means they are not white. Their matrix is not mineralized. We don't call it calcium because it's not just calcium, there are so many minerals which make it white. So this is not white, so this is osteopenia, and here you have a osteoporotic fracture where there is a very thin rim of vertebra left. And this is the intervertebral disc space, this is the intervertebral disc space. Even the D11 is also similarly compromised, although D12 is more of a wedge-shaped fracture here. You see that? So this is a classical presentation of an osteoporotic fracture, and this was the reason she was having the low backache, and she was very lucky because this was just L1. So it would have compressed her spinal cord, and she would have become a paraplegic just like Zane's patient. But you see, Zane's patient had a pathological fracture. I'm not sure whether you can call osteoporosis a pathological fracture. I think you can probably. Yeah, you should look into your definition of pathological fracture. Yes, of course, there is a pathology there, and that's the reason she suffered from it. And she was suffering this low backache, God knows since when, like 10 years maybe. 10 years she has been suffering this fracture, and probably she was having other fractures also. And current problem for which she came, Muskan? Shortness of breath. As per her relatives, not as per her. She is also telling, which I am saying that she is also telling. So what is the reason for her? Shortness of breath. So I will be taking leave here, and Dr. Usha and the others will be continuing. And I hope yesterday also you showed them the other finding patients, because today they have come, the new patients. So every day we will have this routine where you come into the ward at 2 o'clock, 10 minutes, 5 minutes you say hello to your old patient, collect the updates, and then in the next 10-20 minutes you see a new patient. And then you come here quickly, and then we discuss whatever you have taken, and after that you go back again after 4, 5, whatever, and even now would be a better idea, and then till 6 they can also guide you, and you take the first, the new patient in detail, and then come prepared again for tomorrow. And if you can, whatever data you have captured in detail, you share in the group in the evening or at night time. That should be your routine. And the more you do that, the better competent you will be. Alright, we'll share one of the best presentations from their batch because all their presentations are recorded with us. So we'll share that so that you can say, okay, I want to be like this. I want to present like that. Okay, so we will be sharing it in your group. And I think that's it for today. Tutorial. We had a fantastic revealing discussion about transfusion associated graft versus host disease. So thanks for that, and Shashikala will prepare the September thing with all that. I will just make those and I'll send, and Saidul will prepare each and every day on a separate Word file. Okay, and all the best to Mansa for going to KHL on her peripheral posting. And all the best to Vinay for completing her job from tomorrow.